What meeting?
Just letting you know that just close that one. I want to honour your time today. Appreciate that you gave that time to this webinar, that you're busy. So I want to try and keep it within the hour. In that respect, I'm just going to sort of go through the things that I wanted to share with you. And then if certain points I'd like you to sort of respond with a hand up or chat into the chat box. I was going to think about putting into groups and doing some group work, but it depends on the time, so I'm going to play that one by you. The format really is just about keys to creativity. So it's all about trying to understand what it is that creates that unlocks the code, if you like, unlocks how do we access creativity. And the reason I'm here today, the reason I'm speaking about this is because this was a journey I went through in terms of my own experience. There was a time for me when I felt like I had a load of creativity to give. I had loads of things to provide, but I didn't feel like I had a voice. I didn't feel like I could speak out. I didn't feel like I was heard. I didn't feel appreciated. And this was in all sorts of areas, like in relationships, in work, at school, like it was a pattern. And it sort of developed for me into a kind of kickback. So I became a bit of a difficult person to be around in many respects. And this was not just it was anger, it was frustration, it was, being misunderstood. It was like all these things. And I was like, what is it about me there's one common denominator? And it was the feeling that I wasn't being heard, essentially. And that I had more to give, and there was no opportunity for me to speak. Now, I kind of made all these excuses, and I skipped school, I skipped work, I would make all sorts of excuses. And there were times when, like a particular low point, when my boss turned up at the house and he said, Kath, we've phoned the hospital. They don't know of your mum here. I literally made so many excuses, like I'd throw my mum under a bus. She had no idea, but she went through all these sort of excuses, like my mum's had another accident, I can't come in today. It was just this, I didn't want to go in. It kind of created this scenario in me where I was just trying to like reverse out of situations and coming up with all these excuses. So I knew like underneath it all, I wasn't a bad person. I wasn't doing the wrong thing. I wasn't necessarily getting these things wrong for a reason, like that because I was wanting things to go wrong. I just didn't quite figure out that it was because of the fact that I didn't feel I had a voice. So what did I find out? So to fast forward 20 years, and what I really came to clearly understand is that be heard, to the level to which to be heard is the level to which you listen. And this was a key thing, like a fundamental finding for me, if you like. And I'm here now, like I feel like I feel like I'm on the telly, like in Yorkshire would be like, oh my mum, I'm on the telly, like this is a big one. I'm on the web. I feel like this is finally I'm here, I'm saying it, I've got a voice. And so I want to use this opportunity to talk about that, about how to get a voice, how to enable people to have a voice. My intention for this webinar is not to tell you things that you don't already know necessarily. It's maybe just to remind you of the things that matter, that make a difference, that you can do in your life on a daily basis, at work, at home. So that's my kind of intention for this webinar. I realized coming to this place that actually what I really want to do is to be able to help others find their voice too. And I think that leaders are the route to that, to reaching the most people. That's why I've gone into this area of leadership coaching. Now, I found some stats to kind of back up, because I don't think I'm on my own in this. I don't think I'm the only person sort of struggling with this. I want to be heard, like hand up at the back and no one's listening. I found some figures reported by Hapio UK, and it's a sort of statistics company. They look at employment statistics, and they cite 79% of people leave their work because of lack of appreciation. And on the flip side of that, there's 90% of leaders report that a better engagement strategy for their organization would have a significant impact on business success. So there's obviously a gap here. It's not just me. There's things going on here, and there's leaders want it, staff want it. So what's going on? Why are we not achieving it? So that's my intro, but to give you a bit of a background about me for people here that don't know me, and it's lovely to meet you, by the way, lots of people that I do know, great to see you again. I'm Kath Lewis. So I was born in Africa. My dad's on the call, my sister's on the call. My husband's on the call, was somewhere. My kind of journey is born in Africa, raised in Yorkshire, and now live in Doha. I live in Qatar. So I'm a bit of an adventurer. I've lived in 31 countries. I've visited 31 countries. I've lived in 7. And I've run my own business, my communications business, for 18 years, working with some fairly high and low profile companies, including Rolls-Royce, Network Rail, and lots of charities and what have you. My focus has been on a community cohesion, or not cohesion, community communications. So linking businesses with their communities. I took myself through a challenge academically. I took an MBA recently in leadership and management. And that sort of started the light bulbs going in terms of what was going on in the links between people and industry. And I'm here today, as you know, as an Empower World alumni, the fantastic Marie Quigley and Janine Bailey, who've put me here. Like, they've given me this platform. And I described Marie recently as a nutritionist for the soul. And genuinely, I believe that, you know, there's something about Marie. She kind of hears the things that I don't say so loud, and she's just there for me. She's just like, she seems to get it. So Marie's got this ability to just connect with people. And I admire that enormously. And I'm very grateful for that. And I think the reason, like, creativity, when Marie said, what's your topic? And I was like, I don't know. And I was kind of worried about the timing of that. Like, she needs to know, like, maybe she needs to, I didn't ask, I thought she probably needed to know now to put it into the marketing literature or whatever. So I went into, like, I was like, what is it? Of all the things, I've done all these things, like, all over the world, that I've lived in these different places, I've had these experiences, I've done my MBA. I had like mild panic attack, and I thought, creativity. Typed it up and sent it over. And Marie was like, creativity, great, so I'll see you then. And then I was like, oh, but creativity, it's huge, it's a massive topic. Now what do I say? Like, what is it about creativity? What is it why did that come through? And I realized the reason creativity came through, and this is the coaching bit, like, you tap in, why? It's because of all the things that are going on in the world, and all the kind of things that are outside of our control. And there's so much of it. And this happens to us on a daily basis. It happens to us in business. It happens to us in so many different parts of our lives. And the creativity piece is the piece for me. I always sort of felt a bit of a frustrated artist. You know, I've got paintings around the house. I kind of call myself a creative person, but I never kind of communicated any of that. I've always just had it as a picture in the house. But coaching's given me this kind of canvas to paint. It's like my portal to others, to get my art out to the world. It's this sort of magical place that I can just be creative. I can do all the art, and I can bring it to life for beyond me. It's not just me, it's others. And this is the piece that's so like close to my heart. So moving from there, creativity, I wanted to just put a little note in here. There's a lovely quote when I was talking about the timing and like coming up with a creativity angle. There's a lovely quote by Leonard Bernstein after they got the man to the moon, and they said, to achieve great things, 2 things need to happen. 1, a plan, and 2, not enough time. And I thought this is kind of why creativity is important. This is why great achievement comes from creativity. There's not enough time for me to explain all this, but I can kind of give it a good shot. So we've established creativity is the route to finding like solutions beyond our understanding. We need to think laterally. We hear it all the time. Think outside the box. Like, come up with a creative solution. And this is not always that easy. It's not always that easy because the problems are sometimes beyond us. But we either take this mantle or we don't, and we either adapt or we don't. And it was Charles Darwin who said it's not the most intelligent, it's not the strongest who survive, it's the most adaptable to change. And this is the kind of thing that we've seen in the kind of workplace, in organizations, and in people, largely, sadly. Some people adapt and some don't. And what is it that kind of affects that? Now, there's a thing I've noticed about sort of human interaction as I've done all these sort of studies, and it's that we kind of sit into this, we kind of sit into categories based on the problem. So is the problem something that we want to share? Is it problem shared, problem halved? Or is it a problem shared, problem multiplied? And often, you kind of grapple with these, don't you? I do. I've always grappled with these, and it depends on the problem. If I'm trying to clean the house and I want the room tidy in time for the person who was just told me that they're going to be here in 20 minutes, then you go to mad panic and like kids help, and I'm getting them organized and they're sort of wandering around and they're making it worse and they're just destroying the place. I'm like, stop, we're doing that. I want you to focus on cleaning the house. We've got to get this thing done. And these kind of problems, eventually it's just like, oh, look, go away, go outside, go and disappear. I need to do it myself, and I'll boss it, and I'll just lean in, fix the problem. I know where everything is. I know where everything goes. I can get it sorted in no time. So these kind of problems are like, we know how to boss these problems, and these come up all the time in work as well. Like, we know how to boss these problems. But then sometimes when the problem's bigger, like I said, and sometimes the consequences are much higher. So what do we do then? We kind of go to our strategies. What's the strategy here? How do we solve this problem? And I think quite often, we do overthink the strategic element of it. In organizations, I've spent a lot of time in businesses doing marketing strategies and working with the leaders to figure out an organizational strategy where, we iterate on a problem and on historic data, and we go through lots and lots of detail, and we macro environment, micro environment, and we kind of go through and identify what it is, and we pick it apart, and then we find, and it's a very kind of cumbersome and difficult process. And there's people coming into the situation who are like, they know exactly how to fix this. Like, I'm a strategist, I can fix this, I'm going to come in and then but every strategy really is quite simple. We've got a problem, and we need to identify the problem. What is the problem? Then we need to gather the information in order to know what to do. So that is the key piece, because that is going to inform us on how to find a solution. So there's what's the problem? What's the information around what to do? And what's the solution? So what's the best thing, what could we do based on the information that we've gathered? Now, what could we do based on the information that we gathered? So what is the information that we've gathered based on the problem that we've identified? Now, this is something that can go lots of different ways to some extent. How do we find the information? And like I said, for me, it's been mixed, but the most successful and most creative element to finding a solution is to get that information from the people who are living the problem. And we all kind of know this. We know that we need to speak to people in order to find the information. The data will tell us one part of the story, but actually, what's the whole story? Like, for me, an example would be going into an admissions, like an admissions meeting, and admissions are down. Like, if we don't get enough people, we're not going to be able to run the school. It's a crunch point. It's big. It's bigger than us. And so I might pull in the marketing manager and the admissions manager and the head, and we'd sit there and we'd pick over what we think it is based on what we understand it to be. And I would be coming from a communications angle, and the head would be coming from whatever the angle it is that they're dealing with so many other things, so they'd be coming from their angle. So we'd be coming in from our own perspective, but we might be making decisions based on our current understanding of the problem. Whereas if I approach that problem without just those three people, if I bring in lots of people, if I bring in the person, like, I think about the whole customer journey, and I think about the guy on the gate who's letting people in, what does he observe about the way that parents are arriving? And because admissions are parents actually, coming to the school? What is it about receptionists, about what's happening when they come to the school? What's that touch point like? So if I go around the organization and I go, it's not just the marketing manager, it's not just admissions, it's not just the head, it's everybody. Like we're all these touch points, the teachers, everybody's got some information here that's going to be useful for me finding understanding the information that's going to help me solve the problem. And so this is the big bit, like for an organization to, I think we all know this, but the time, fights against us. We don't necessarily get that opportunity to go and speak to all these people. And sometimes, did we approach it differently? We'll all kind of, no doubt, have these experiences of different approaches from leadership. There'll be the leader, like let's call her Kate. She comes in and she's like, I don't have time to fix this. I'm going to go and boss it. I'm going to make sure everybody's doing what I say they're going to do. That she holds all the weight of the problem, and she's going in with her own kind of ideas and her own, understanding of how to fix this. But the problem's very complex. She knows that, and the stakes are high. She knows that, and she knows she doesn't have all the experience, but still she's going to move forward with that to solve that problem because she hasn't got time to fix it. There's not enough time. There's never enough time. And then there's lots of different styles of approaching a problem and a strategy, if you like. But then there's another one I'd like to sort of example, and that's, we would say Bob over here, and Bob's going, well, I think everybody should be included. I think we should just speak to everyone and get them all on side and hear from everybody, like I've just described. And this would be a great way to sort of enable lots of creativity and get lots of ideas involved. But then he goes out and he speaks to people and they don't feel like they want to contribute, like they're just sort of, well, I don't really know, it's the you problem. That's kind of beyond me. I'm not really, I don't know what you know, so I'm not really able to sort of feed into that. And Bob's like, come on, I actually want you to feed in. I'm giving you an opportunity to speak. And he goes around, and he gets a similar response, and people are just not communicating. And then when somebody does communicate, it's like, yeah, but we've tried that. It didn't work. Like last time. It's not, we don't have the budget for that. Yeah, but we don't have, the manpower. Yeah, but if we did that, we're going to get the same result because we did that before. So Bob comes out of this equally as frustrated. He knows he's got the problems to solve, and he's kind of just goes like, well, I did everything. I tried everything, and nobody would chip in. It's just impossible. So this brings me back to the problem is that how do we approach a problem? Do we go in with a problem shared? Is a problem halved? Do we go in with a problem shared? Is a problem multiplied? And from a you guys here, I guess, who's problem shared, problem halved most of the time, if you're thinking about your own experiences, put your hand up or put yes in the chat. And who's problem shared, problem multiplied? Again, stick your hand up or put your a yes in the chat. So this is the thing. Like we've got, So we do both. Sometimes we lean to one, sometimes we lean to the other, sometimes we do both, and it depends on the problem. Often I found if the problem's one that we can boss it, like the living room and getting tidied, we go in problem shared, problem multiplied, don't do it. So we kind of flip in and out of both of these, I believe. So what do we do? So in the situation that I gave with Bob and Kate, they've both still got the problem. The problem hasn't had a creative solution. It's had their solution, and it's through their lens, and they're going to revert to type. They're going to revert to what they've done before, and they're going to find quite often that it's not immediately they find the result. It's going to be like 6 months later, and then they're like, oh, we've got the same issue. It's just not going away. We need to fix admissions, for example. We're still getting numbers down. Still, this is going to hurt everybody. We're going to go out of business. This is going to get really difficult. So we're not enabling creativity with either approach. And either approach, neither are wrong. Like Kate's holding a lot of stuff there, and so is Bob. Like they're both in this scenario where they're kind of just juggling and trying to, cope with the situation. So what do we do? And this is where I would like to ask your opinion. If you were Bob, what do you think's going on there for Bob? Why is Bob not getting the people? Why are people not speaking to him? What are your thoughts? Sharing this in the group, and I know a lot of you are coaches, and you might have your own, coaching hat on when you're answering this. But I'll give you a minute just to think about what is going on for Bob in this situation. He's trying to share, people aren't speaking to him. Nobody's giving him anything. What are your ideas around that? And if you want to say it, by all means, just put your hand up and we can take you off mute. He's asking the wrong question, Maria said. From what you illustrated, he's not listening. Tony.
And Layla says they haven't been listened to before, Kath.
Layla, they haven't been listened to before. Yeah. Not the right environment to contribute. And Michelle, do they need incentive to contribute? Paula, they assume he's not open to listening. Their opinion, listening to their opinion. Yeah. So what I think we can distill down here is there's an environmental problem. There's something going on that's not quite happening at Salim, at a client with the same problem. The problem is a block and related to one situation. Tracy, maybe not entirely clear on the purpose, low levels of personal agency, as not used to being involved, not confident to give honest opinion, worried to say one wrong thing. That's huge, that statement, worried to say the wrong thing, not confident to give the honest opinion. And this is what I think it's coming down to for Bob. He's trying, he's really trying. Communication is not well established. And Simone, Simone's having to go. She's got, looking forward to watching recording. She's got things, batteries going flat. Michelle, fear of judgment. Yeah, so the environment, there's something going on in the environment. The people aren't speaking, and it's what we've come to learn in the coaching, what I've come to learn in the coaching world is unless the environment is safe for them to speak, and they're not worried about being judged, they're not worried about what the repercussions of having said something that might not be brilliant, like my idea might not be the solution, I don't just chip in there. If the environment is a kind of place where they don't necessarily feel safe to speak, then they won't speak. It's a human reaction to a kind of business problem. We need to, as leaders, not just ask for people and expect people to come in and with the best answer and just expect people to pop in with whatever it is that they've got on their mind. We need to enable them. It's a huge difference. And I'll go into that in a second because these are the keys. This is one of the keys. Now, the big problem so to summarize, the big problem is the safety of the environment for Bob. So what about Kate? What do you think's going on with Kate? Kate's not got time. She's not really enabled. She's not really got the sort of equipment, if you like, to speak to everybody. So she's just going to go in and boss it. She's kind of bossed this kind of thing before, and she's just going to go and fix it herself because why not? She can get it done quicker. What's going on for Kate in this situation? What are your thoughts around that? Cats, especially if there's a hierarchy, yeah, safety. It's difficult when you're trying to push through different layers. So what are your thoughts for Kate? Kate's doing it all herself. She's fixing all these problems. She's just carrying the weight. She knows she can carry it. She's a coffee before wine kind of girl. This is how I get through the day. Pop in the chat. What do you think? Pip, impatience, lack of creativity, create the environment for people to contribute psychological safety. Yeah. Michelle, so for Kate, she doesn't value collaboration. What else do you think? I'm just looking to see if there's any hands. Anybody actually wants to speak, or just pop it in the chat if it comes through, if something comes through for you. She might fear collaboration. Kath, yeah. Paula, options can only include what she can do, not others' strengths. That's huge, Paula. Lily. Why Lily did it around speaking? She doesn't trust others' opinions. Yeah, she doesn't trust others' opinions. Salim, fear of what's hindering her way forward. Fear is what's hindering her way forward. She's fearful. Yeah. So for Kate, these comments are kind of distilled into the environment or the arena. She's got a fear of failing. Yeah, quite possibly. Kate, like Maria, Kate likes to work on her own. She doesn't trust others, is not interested in collaboration. She's hiding behind her efficiency. Yeah, she's actually holding a lot. She's fearful, no doubt. She's frightened that other people are not going to be able to necessarily contribute. And she's going to go in and do it all herself. And she's probably fearing collaboration. The thing that's going on for Kate is that she's actually letting her ego run the show. Like there's her bias and her opinion of what's going on is going to be sufficient because she's quite comfortable. Her ego, like her understanding the situation, that's going to work. This is an ego problem. Michelle, teamwork, one of her low personal strengths and values. Yeah, she's probably just not comfortable with teamwork. And this is not necessarily a bad thing in all situations. As we said, you can go in and boss it, but you can get in the habit of doing one thing. Like they say, the way that you do one thing is the way that you tend to do most things. She might be in the habit of just doing it, like me with the lounge. And I've fallen into this so many times. It's just easier. It's easier. It's quicker. I haven't got time. If I ask Jane to contribute, Jane's been tripping me up for the last 5 years. Like if she comes in and asks and she contributes, it's not going to serve me. Like I'm sure, and I make this assumption that I'm sure it's just going to it's going to derail it. It's going to get even worse. This is the problem shared, problem multiplied thing. So the struggle there for Kate is the ego. She's actually holding too much. She's just holding too much. She's letting herself get in her own way, because the same result, she's not going to realize the creativity. She's not going to fix the problem. She's just going to keep bossing it until it goes right. And then it might go right because she's got evidence that it worked before. So just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. Keep your head down. Cope with the problems as they come up. So the thing that's interesting this is where coaching comes in, and in the details we said there's a few tweaks to realizing creativity. And it's not that Bob and Kate are actually messing this up and just bad people and don't know how to do this and don't know how to do that. They probably just don't have the skill set to enable people in the way that is going to be useful to realizing creativity to find information that's going to solve the problem. So what can we do? We can, from in the coaching community, there's some sort of, there's kind of fundamental elements to human interaction that work. And this is what I said at the beginning, my intention is not to give you information that you don't already know, it's to give you information that's going to help make a difference. These little keys, those little tweaks, if you like, in our behavior and the way that we interact with people, either engages people or it doesn't. The ones that we've picked up on there, ego. So what do we do when we notice our ego is getting in the way? Now, I'll sum up both of them, ego and safety. What do we do in these situations? There's a fundamental element of how we interact. And I said it at the start, the way that the extent to which we hear is the extent to which we are heard. And if we are not listening to people, we fall into this trap of not knowing and making assumptions. We're not listening. And it's such a simple piece of the jigsaw. We're not listening. So both of these leadership types and any leadership type can engage somebody. We can all, in our relationships, engage somebody differently if we listen. Now, there's different levels, and we, studied this a lot, but there's different levels, and some people will say there's 3 levels, some 4, like others will go down to 8 levels of listening, and it's depth of listening that's the key. And quite often you find, and I found when I reflected on this, that I would be listening to somebody just to respond. I would be listening to somebody just to give my opinion, just to throw in there, like, what I'm hearing is basically how what you're saying applies to me. And so that's how I'm going to respond to you. And you'll hear this a lot, you'll say something to somebody and they'll come back and like, oh, I had that experience. Yeah. And they'll just talk about their thing and you're just waiting for them to stop. And then off we, we're going to, it's a kind of surface level listening. It's not really hearing what's going on. And in coaching, there's the Empower World team identify this as like 4 levels of listening. Now, when you get down to level 2, you kind of listen a bit more for a bit more detail. Level 3, you're going in a bit deeper, like you're trying to really hear what's going on. You're hearing for what's not been said. And level 4, you're hearing way below the surface. And there's this, it's the iceberg thing, isn't it? What we hear is generally the tip of the iceberg. What's going on is nearly always way below that. And so we need to listen differently. And the question to ask ourselves at this point is, when we're listening to somebody, a nice check that I do now a lot is, what's my motivation for listening? Am I listening to try and solve the problem? Or am I listening just to get validation for my opinion? Or am I just listening sort of out of mild curiosity, but not really interested? What's your motivation? So this is the first thing that Kate, for instance, could check in. What's some, and Bob, what's the motivation for listening? And it's a truth that we, the way that we listen will give you different information. You will always get different information. And the other key to that is the way that we ask questions. So when we're listening to somebody, we might, the way to get further into that understanding of what's going on is to ask questions. And then the rule of thumb is ask more than you tell. Always ask more than you tell. Don't be the ask and listen. Don't be this sort of tell and sell person. Be the ask and listen person. When you're listening to somebody, there's an element of inquiry that you kind of need to employ in order to get to the detail that is actually going to be useful to you. Now, taking Kate again with her ego, if I'm listening just for me, it's my ego stepping in. If I'm listening to tell you something about what you just said, again, it's my ego stepping in. It's my bias stepping in. So I'm going to just correct you there. And there's a lovely little exercise that Marie and Janine did with us in our coach training. And it was to simply, when you're asking questions, to simply replace but with and. So just making that simple change. Like if it was an admissions meeting and somebody came in and I said, what's your thoughts on this? And they would say, well, I think we should lower prices. And I said, yeah, but we don't have the budget to lower prices. So that stops them. But the but removes everything that they said. It just like removes it. They don't, then there's a judgment in there. That my judgment on their opinion was derailing them. So they're not going to give me another one. And we can all experience this, I think. We can all probably feel into this, where you would ask, you'd be asked your opinion, you give your opinion and somebody be like, yeah, but that's not going to work. Yeah, but done that, it's not effective. Shifting that to yes and just changes it completely. It changes the whole situation. So in that situation with me asking somebody about admissions, and they say, well, I think we should lower prices. Yes, and how does that affect the problem? How does that? Yes, and that's a great idea. And how do we do that? Well, we don't you know, we do a price like check with other schools. Oh, okay. So how do we do that? So they come back with maybe, well, we do a bit of mystery shopping, and then, okay, so who do we ask? Who do we mystery shop with? We're going further into the information there. We're getting more detail that's going to give us more of a clue as to where the answer is. And their response is they're going to feel heard, like, oh yes, she's interested, she's inquiring further, she's getting curious about my understanding. And I don't really understand it, but the way that you're asking me those questions, I'm kind of thinking now, well, actually the scenario is, you know, that all these different schools, and my friend sort of has their child in a different school, and actually our prices are lower than theirs. Oh, so is it price? Is price the thing? Oh, maybe not. Like, so maybe it's not price. Maybe it's what did they say? Like, what did your friend say about why did they choose this school? Well, they chose this school because we offer after school clubs as in, you know, as part of the deal. But we don't have X, Y, and Z. Like we don't have a uniform that they like, and we don't have parking that they like. Oh, okay. So the problem with the admissions is maybe not the price. Maybe it's something about the uniform and the parking. I'm getting further into the understanding here, and this is the key. Ask and listen and inquire. Keep inquiring until you get to an understanding, and be genuinely interested in the information that's coming back, because this is going to give you so much more creative. Like, this is the creativity piece. Creativity is not the, you know, removing the idea that creativity is artwork or a kind of a big event of, you know, change, of innovation, like a new thing. It can just be a small iteration or a small piece of what we already know, but with more detail. And this is what, by speaking to these people, by speaking to everybody, by speaking to people on the gate, for instance, to find out with the parking's an issue, I might find out whether it really is or not. Like, they can give me more detail about that. And the safety element, like, how do we make a safe environment? So this is a, you know, very complex area to some extent, because when people don't feel safe, they will not speak to you. Even if you're asking the nice questions, they might still be reticent to say anything. Now, the guy on the gate, I might have never met the guy on the gate. So I first of all find out he's not a guy on the gate, it's called Sam. Like, first of all, I get to know this guy on the gate. I find out who he is. And I don't go in and say, hey, Sam, like, who are you? Like, what does your wife do? Well, my wife's not working. Like, I don't, yeah. So he's kind of got into this, I've already started on the wrong foot. I found out his name, and that's really great. I'm building rapport with him, but I'm asking him a question that's going to put him on the back foot. I don't need to know what his wife does, for instance. I can just say, you know, where did you meet your wife? Do you have a wife? Where did you meet her? And he can, like, oh, well, I met, and he's got a story, and he can, and I've got more information about Sam. We're building a rapport there. It's actually, there's a safety element going on here where he feels he can speak to me and there's no judgment. The judgments, I've not added in a, well, that's sad that your wife doesn't work, you know, shame about your circumstances. Now I can change that in an instant. I can change that just by the power of my language. I can just make him feel included and it can speak, or I can make him feel like he's going to be judged. We have to remove, if we're going to include people, we have to remove the judgment. And the judgment isn't just in the way that we say things, it's in our whole body language. Like, we can be really sort of leaning in and, like, or, you know, we can give an impression that we don't necessarily want to hear what they've got to say, or we're a bit disappointed by what they said. Or we can look animated and we can be encouraging, we can make eye contact, we can smile. smile's contagious, isn't it? Like they say. So there's all these little bits that we can do. Now, from a safety check point of view, one of the key things that we've got 15 minutes left, and I would just like to open the floor to questions shortly. But one of the key things that we can do, and that I've found really helpful, it was a webinar that I attended, and the guy said, notice the way that people are going about their day. As a manager, as a leader, walking around, like check in with, are people kind of going lots of thumbs up behind sort of grimaces? Are people kind of just avoiding seeing you, like they see you walking around and they kind of disappear? Are people just gossiping? Are people, is there a sort of a tension in the air when you're in the room? Then they don't feel safe. There's a safety element going on there. There's something that you need to fix. And we can do this by modeling how to be safe, by using our right body language, by using our words more effectively to engage and include people. And we can be vulnerable. We can model vulnerability. We can say that we don't nail things all the time. It's not always going our way either. And we can give examples of this. There's nobody having it, who's absolutely crushing it, I don't think, and just like living this perfect life. We've all got pressure points. We all get things wrong. And just make that okay to get things wrong, and model that to the people who you're trying to get information from, because they will find that comforting. The bar's gone down. Like they know it's okay to fail. Then this is the kind of no blame culture, isn't it, that we work towards. And the other tip that you gave me was, if you want to find out how people feel at work and if they feel appreciated, ask the staff to rate their manager. And I thought this was really interesting, because if you feel that it could be even an anonymous survey, ask people to rate their manager, and that will give you an idea across the business of how everybody under that manager is feeling safe to contribute. They will give you insight into that, just from that one question. So the keys to creativity, and I'm going to go for I'll just read your message there, Estelle. There's some companies where the environment is so toxic, I feel there's no way out. There's no way to express vulnerability as a manager. When you're in a pool full of crocodiles, where do you start to establish safety? So that's a brilliant question. Where do you start when you're in a pool full of crocodiles? We'll come to that in a second, Estelle. Because that's it's a challenge indeed. So the keys, I'd just like to summarize for us to take away that we can start employing now, today. Remove your ego when you're speaking to people. Notice your bias if you're bringing in a bias to the conversation. Notice it and check in with it and stop it. Just change it. Take yourself out of it for a minute and see how it goes. Just see what reaction you get. See if there's a change in the way that people respond to you. Ask and listen. And listen, check in your motivation for listening. What is your motivation for listening? And what questions are you asking? Keep the saying coaching, keep the questions clean. And that means we don't kind of intend anything with the question. We're not pushing or leading anywhere with the question. We're just keeping it very neutral and focus on the problem. Bring it back to the problem every time. And create a safe place, no judgment. The big one with the no judgment in terms of really making this key for people when you're engaging with them, the feedback is really important. How you give feedback is really important to safety as well. So when you're giving feedback to somebody as a leader, as a manager, and you are giving feedback in a way that the feeds back on the person and not the problem, then you're putting in judgment into that. So feedback on the problem, not the person. You wouldn't say to somebody, or try and adjust this if you can. like every time I speak to you, I try and come and get you, like Bob, in Bob's situation. Every time I come and speak to you, you just hide, you just disappear. I really want you to get involved, but you do this, you do that, and then I've noticed this about you. You don't need to go into that detail with the person, because again, it's making him feel unsafe. You're judging him. But if you went in with a, we've got this problem, I really value like what you did on that project, that was amazing. I really value your opinion on this, and it would be great to get your input on this particular thing, because I think there might be something that you can add to that, and it would be great to hear from you, if that's okay, if you feel okay contributing there. And it's a different approach, for he receives that as a kind of compliment. You're playing to his strengths, you're understanding him, you're listening to him, you kind of seeing what he did before, you've acknowledged. So it's a very different reaction. You get a very different reaction. And the replacing but with and is a fantastic one. So the final piece of this is to reflect. Reflect on how you speak to people. Reflect on whether you're including people and whether they're reacting well or not to what you're saying, and reflect on what it was that you might have said that might have upset them. Reflect and adjust and try again. This isn't a kind of, you're not wrong, you're not bad, you're not doing anything that's awful. It's just these tiny tweaks that might just make the difference between going and enabling an innovative idea that keeps the company afloat, that enabling an innovative idea in your life that keeps your life on track, and or just constantly going around the hamster wheel in the same thing, doing the same thing. And this is Einstein's theory of insanity, isn't it? We keep going, doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So the final quote I want to leave you with: creativity comes from desire to contribute to the lives of others. I thought it was a brilliant quote, and it really sings to me. That was by Dan Polotta. I've watched a lot of his webinars. He's a great speaker. And that's the end of my kind of what I wanted to get across in this webinar. That's the end of what I wanted to say. I would love to throw the floor to you guys and see if there's anything you want to come back with, anything that you want to say in response, anything that you want to, any questions that you might have. We've got 10 minutes left, just short.
I think the presentation was very good, and lots of food for thought. And one of the themes seemed to come out is fear of failure is failure. We always believe that every failure is a success in the making. I don't know. It just a thought. I mean, my first webinar, and I'm going to the dentist after this, so I'm looking forward to that as well. Not as much as this, but yeah, I fully appreciate what you were saying. Very constructive, and those sort of web presentations you need to reflect on within yourself more than just ask questions at the moment.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, fear of failure is a huge one, isn't it? And we hear a lot, fall forward. And something that really landed with me a while ago, somebody pointed out that the fear of the pain is not the pain. It's the fear is not of the pain itself. It's the fear of the pain. Hang on, let me get this right. It's the fear, not the pain, that hurts. When we get in this like, it's like me preparing for this webinar. The anticipation of it all going wrong is the bit that's hard. Being here and doing it is like, that's not, we overthink what things are how things are gonna be, and this is the fear. We kind of overthink a lot, and we get caught in our thoughts. So yeah, I 100% agree with that. There's a lot of fear driving decisions. Finding
And
out
I
what's
think,
behind the fear is a really interesting one.
I think, as you said, the fear is the root cause of failure. That's all.
It can derail us, definitely. Fear of the pain and not the pain itself, it can derail us, What was
Michelle, maybe I can, Kath, I can maybe suggest to go regarding fear. From maybe we are from different culture, and I lived in the West for a long time. I lived almost 6 years in the US, and 1 year in Australia, and 1 year in UK. So I have seen how we from our part of the world, how we deal with fear, and how the West dealing with fear. And I can see there's a big difference in which culture plays a big role into fear. When I see the way we raise our kids, and all the time we don't do that, don't do that, don't do this, we create that fear from the beginning, from their childhood. I mean, at the past, a kid, he can be a husband when he's maybe 16 years old. So it's already fear removed from him. These days, we are pampering, sorry to use this word, pampering, and treating our kids maybe politely, slightly. So the fear has increased. So we are too protected for our kids. So all this, it plays a big role into shaping a man and a woman, and from home. And then if this fear is created at home, then it goes to school, and the school also, they don't deal with it properly, then the fear become more compounded fear. So all this, the school and then come the peers, come more. That's why you find people, if they go to more struggle, they are fearless. And sometimes even worse thing, emotionless. And so I think that the environment, it's big issue. So if we don't start from the beginning, we're dealing with fear, and the parents, they should notice in their kids who has the fear, who is lonely. So we should deal with it from day one. And then it's become too late when you go when you are maybe 30 years and above. It's become very difficult to deal with fear, and then it end up the client I've seen, he's seeing psychiatrists now because of fear. No one at home is helping him. So this is we should go from beginning, from dealing at the end. That will be not the cure, it will be only like a bandage. But the beginning, from the childhood, we should deal with it. This is my thought actually about the whole issue of fear.
Yeah, I agree there. And I know Kath might want to chip in here, because this is a big area that we've discussed, isn't it, Kath? Like it starts in school, this understanding of, fear of failure. What does that mean? And being able to be okay with feeling the feel.
That wasn't why I put my hand up, but absolutely, Kath. Yeah, they should help more with it in schools. Make it more okay for to understand the emotions behind fear, and that it's okay to fail, make mistakes, and yeah. But I wasn't going to jump on that here. I put my hand up for something else. So
thanks for feeding that in. Do you want to speak now then, Kath? Do you want to say what it was?
I haven't got my glasses on. Is it Magdalena? She was first.
Lena, sorry, Lena, go.
I just wanted to say that I was really amazed, and thank you, Katrina, for letting me speak. So I was really impressed how you make the mixture between the situations in our private life and business life, because this given complexity of situations is actually beautifully mirroring the complexity of the creativity itself. We, especially with the creativity, I think we can't really put it in the box of theory, because it will have very, very different dimensions. and different level of understanding and exposing this ability to creativity. And even coming from the way how I am dealing with these things, either good or bad situations in my private life, most probably this behavioral attitude will be rolled out in my business area. Very, very similar attitude, because the brain is working that way. And I agree very, very much. So thank you for that. It was really kind of shaking bomb. And here the role of leaders is really significant, because we have primary school, we have high school, we have university, all academic narrative teaching. And I will mention about parents later. And then it's somehow kind of misconception that education is stopping once we have our graduation. But it's a job of leader, and what you nicely referred to observe and give attention to the people you work with, that actually to develop the social construct of the employee towards this creativity. And so it was really, really great presented, and just wanted to say, comment to what Salim has said. I think with this before and now childhood and parenting, it's very visible through the exercise of doing homework, because I don't remember that my parent would sit with me doing homework. It was only, did you do that? If you didn't do that, you will not go outside. And today we are having 13, 14 years old kids, and still parents are sitting literally next to the child and doing the homework, because the child cannot fail. And this is, yes, for the future, it might be a significant factor that they might have this kind of fake perfectionism developed when they enter the adulthood. Because they never failed before, right? They always had a homework on 5, and that's it. So it was a great point, Salim. Also, thank you very much. And Kath, really enjoyed the session. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Lena. That's amazing. Yeah, it starts when we're young. I think when we find that in personal development, nearly all our issues start from when we're quite small.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kath. We are at the top of the hour. I know you had your hand up, Kath. Do you want to add? Okay. I'd just like to say, I think what we observed in this webinar, this really well prepared and creative webinar, and Kath, I know you went through lots of different creative ways of doing this, even before you came on. You also showed us how to create safety and security in a group by modeling it, noticing your tone of voice, how you turned up to the session, your courage in sharing your own vulnerability, and your not so perfect, as we all are, way of being in the world. All of that contributes to creating a psychological safe place for people to breathe, let go of our worries and our fears, move into the part of the brain that allows us to be more open to listening. And you've modeled that so beautifully in this hour, Kath. So thank you so much for being a role model for all of us.
Thank you, Marie. It's lovely to say.
So as we're closing off the session today, and Janine's just managed to join in the last couple of seconds. So Kath, is there anything else you'd like to add before closing off?
Just that I've just started on this journey, like as in being a full-time coach, and going through this experience with Empower World has spurred me. You giving me the opportunity spurred me. All these things, all these like Kath, Maria, Pip, all the people in the room, Salim, you've all spurred me into like having this confidence to get going on this journey, and that there are important messages to share. And I want to say that if anybody is wanting to continue these conversations, I could talk forever about what's going on. From a personal development point of view, it's changed my life. And I've opened I started only just recently a Facebook group called Terra Firma. And this is where I'm kind of having these conversations with people who want to listen. I'm going to put the link in the group if anybody wants to join in and have these conversations, and like if there's anything that you wanted to discuss that you didn't get a chance to speak about today, very happy to have an open Q&A in there. And you know, come in if you want to come in, if you feel aligned, we can have these conversations. There is no end to it from my point of view. It goes on. It's all the work of a lifetime. It's a complete evolution over a lifetime. So that's my Facebook group if anybody would like to join in.
Thank you, Kath. And if people don't have Facebook or are not on it for some reason, how else can they connect with you?
I've got a website, kathlewiscoaching.com. All my contact details are on there. I will be holding a workshop, a group coaching workshop in April, all about listening, all about just listening. It's a huge topic, and I would love to, I will be putting the information on the website. So by all means, go there, find the information, and reach out to me, and we can, you know, we can book on and do all the things from there.
Thank you so much, Kath. Really appreciate it. To our alumni and our friends who have joined us today, thank you so much for joining us. And alumni, if you, like Kath, want to step into your power and present to our community, please let us know. Send an email to Arslan saying you'd like to do some presentation. It's only an hour, goes like that, right, Kath?
Yeah. Honestly, I had notes out of my ears. Yeah.
Great job. Great job, Kath. And we'll see you all on one of our programs or at the next alumni event. We do not have an alumni event in April due to Ramadan and Easter. So the next one is in March, May even, going backwards rather than forwards. And we've got Asma Al-Kuwari who's coming on to do her webinar. She was the previous ICF Doha chapter president. So looking forward to that. Janine, as you've joined, would you like to say anything before we've closed?
Only that I'm sorry I missed your session, Kath. I'm sure it's amazing, and I'm looking forward to seeing the recording. And it's great to see, oh gosh, some faces from way back and some more recent faces that we haven't seen so much of, and some faces that we see often. So, and of course, the beautiful new people that have joined us as well. And we hope that you continue to join these sessions. And you may have mentioned, Marie, already, if you want to be part of the mailing list for these sessions, do pop them into the chat box so that we can keep you in touch with what's coming up. So again, great to see everybody. Thank you so much, Kath, for generously giving your time to our community. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Marie, for hosting. I was doing some climate action work this evening, so I'm glad that I've come back just in time to say hi.
Appreciate it, Janine. Thank you so much for your kind words as always. Thank you.
Have a wonderful day, evening, morning, rest of the day, wherever you are in the world. Lots of love from Empower World, and we will see you all soon. Thank you, Kath.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.